We've missed a couple of generations of Toyota's Camry model line, but the brand felt it needed reviving, hence the return of this contender to our market. In 8th generation form it is, as before, a big, comfortable saloon, but this time it champions self-charging hybrid technology.
As has always been the case, a potential Camry buyer will have almost no interest in handling dynamics except to the extent of their influence on ride and refinement. Both those things remain strong points with this 8th generation model, although of course when it came to noise suppression, the petrol-electric dynamic force power plant up front gave Toyota something of a head start. It's a 2.5 litre unit paired to an electric motor on the front axle that boosts total output to 215 bhp. And as usual with the Japanese brand's hybrids, it's paired with a belt-driven CVT automatic gearbox, which doesn't like to be hurried and which sends the revs soaring without much accompaniment in terms of rapid forward motion if you stamp too heavily on the throttle. Drive a little more carefully within this Camry's comfort zone and you're rewarded instead with exemplary refinement and impressive efficiency, up to 53.3 mpg on the WLTP combined cycle, with a potential for an NEDC rated CO2 emissions figure of just 98 grams per kilometre. For company users, that means a benefit-in-kind taxation rating of just 23%. Diesel rivals are up around the 30% mark, so that alone will mean significant savings over more obvious contenders in this car's chosen Mondeo segment. Like all Toyota and Lexus hybrids, this Camry can be driven in three ways. The first of these, from start off, sees forward motion by electric motor only, even if you don't select the provided EV mode. The two other motive formats see this car either just using its engine, if you're giving it full throttle, or more usually delivering the usual hybrid combination of petrol power and electrified motion, which of course is primarily how the powertrain is designed to operate. During deceleration and under braking, the engine switches off and both the electric motors act as high output generators, recovering kinetic energy, which is then automatically sent to the battery to recharge them for the next time the hybrid system is able to switch back into electric only mode. Hence the way that so much of urban motoring in this Camry can be conducted without the use of fossil fuel. Come on, be honest, you expected this Camry to look rather bland. Plenty of this 8th generation model's predecessors certainly did. And we'll be frank, so did we. Instead, what we're served up here is reasonably distinctive. Now, we won't have the neighbours peering over the hedge to see what you've bought, but there's certainly an appealingly low-set look, and that's aided by short overhangs and a wide, purposeful stance. Suffice to say, if this car was Lexus badged, you wouldn't do a double take. This XV70 series 8th generation Camry is a fraction larger than the Mondeo segment norm. Compared to that Ford, it's actually 14mm longer with 12mm more width. Of course, as usual, what's more important is the stuff that you can't see, primarily the all-new stiff, lightweight GAK platform introduced with this 8th generation model, which is 30% more rigid than anything Toyota has previously used for this size of car. There's nothing very memorable about the cabin design on offer here, but you certainly get plenty of space to spread out. Leather upholstery is a given, as are heated and power adjustable seats. This is a car designed for the American market, after all. Plus the chairs themselves, well, they're probably the most supportive of any we've tried in this segment, and they're brilliant for longer journeys. All-round visibility is excellent, and there's also very little to fault about the driving position. That's thanks to vast amounts of seat and steering wheel adjustment. Not so good, however, is the infotainment provision. The 7-inch centre dash screen is rather small by modern standards, and its graphics are rather dated, although the selectable hybrid system energy monitor is informative and a reversing camera is standard fit. Some of the cabin trimming is rather dull, although that doesn't apply to these bizarre bronze-hued tiger eye inlays that feature on this top XL model. Perhaps that's an American thing. Storage provision is pretty good, with a big stowage area between the seats here and a spacious glove box. Right, let's have a look at the rear seat. Inside, it's as roomy and spacious as those exterior dimensions would suggest the car would be. The fact that the exterior part of the roof curves downwards towards the rear of the car does make a slight difference to the headroom back here, but you would only really notice that if you were a 6-footer. And even if you are, then you'll have absolutely no complaints about the legroom. Finally, let's have a look out back, where again much is expected and much is delivered, in terms of capacity anyway. Now, because of the design of the rear suspension and the way that the hybrid system's battery has been placed out of the way beneath the rear seat, luggage space, there's 524 litres of that, doesn't seem to have been in any way compromised by this car's electrified remit. Quite simply, Toyota is better than its rivals in packaging a hybrid drivetrain so it doesn't impinge on boot space. And you get these catches at the top of the cargo area aperture, which can be tugged on to retract the 60-40 split rear seat back should you find yourself unable to resist the allure of flat-pack furniture. The Camry's charms aren't difficult to identify, and they primarily centre around its hybrid engine. You might wish it was one of those electrified models of a plug-in persuasion, but then would obviously be far pricier. Aside from that, the Camry falls back on the same attributes which sold its 80s and 90s predecessors, namely the fact that it offers more space for rear seat passengers and luggage than the Mondeo segment norm, amongst saloons anyway, and it's better equipped for the money. If these advantages pique your interest, then go right ahead and try this Toyota. Hybrid tax breaks will certainly reward you for doing that. Other rivals are more dynamic in many ways, but you might well feel that a Camry just makes more sense. Camry owners always have.